Well, first, Republicans are complaining that the president didn't mention George W. Bush enough in his speech announcing the end of combat operations in Iraq. In fact, he did, quite a bit. The people who got the shortest shrift, it seems to me, were the Iraqis, in particular, the Iraqi parliament. Obama mentioned a whole lot of times that he was following through on a promise to bring combat troops home, for which he's clearly hoping to score election points, but there was only one oblique reference to the Status of Forces Agreement, or SOFA. The timeline, terms, and troop drawdown stipulated in SOFA was signed by U.S. and Iraqi officials in November '08 and stand as law of the land ever since. As the U.S. right proclaimed a surge of success, so too the Democrats are now claiming credit for a withdrawal they didn't really have a whole lot of choice about. And the left is saying that with so many troops remaining, the U.S. maintains its grip. Is anyone right? And could it be that, to the contrary of all of that, in terms of every goal set for the invasion, Iraq is in ruins, the oil is yet flowing? Is it a U.S. defeat? Plain and simple. For his spin, his take rather, on the president's speech, we go to GRITtv's correspondent Bill Fletcher next.
I am announcing that the American combat mission in Iraq has ended. Operation Iraqi Freedom is over, and the Iraqi people now have lead responsibility for the security of their country. This was my pledge to the American people as a candidate for this office.
All right, Bill Fletcher, you're one of the founding board members of United for Peace and Justice. Does Barack Obama score points with you for keeping his pledge and bringing those combat troops home?
No, there's no rewards and no awards going out today, Laura. I was struck by the speech in a few ways. The thing that really got to me is that there was this typical American notion of, let's not review the past. Let's just move on. What did he say? Turn a page. So let's not account for the 500,000 Iraqi children that died as a result of the embargo. Let's not account for the hundreds of thousands that died as a result of the invasion and the subsequent war. Let's not account for any of that. Let's not account for the fact that this was an absolutely illegal, immoral invasion. Let's not account for that. Let's just move on. And it frankly sickened me.
Here's another clip from the speech in which Barack Obama talks about exactly that and talks about the impact on the U.S. economy at home. Take a look.
Ending this war is not only in Iraq's interest, it's in our own. The United States has paid a huge price to put the future of Iraq in the hands of its people. We have sent our young men and women to make enormous sacrifices in Iraq and spent vast resources abroad at a time of tight budgets at home. We've persevered because of a belief we share with the Iraqi people, a belief that out of the ashes of war, a new beginning could be born in this cradle of civilization.
And that's where he says, and now is time to turn a page. I mean, coming to the question of understanding what happened, this economic cost that he describes in that way, he attributes to a war that nonetheless he gives President Bush credit for, at least in the sense that he says this is a man who was trying to improve U.S. security, who cared about U.S. national security. How can you have both? You care about national security, you wage a war that bankrupts the country. Was he too generous to President Bush?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, there should be international criminal charges brought against Bush for this war. I mean, not praising him, not giving him credit for good intentions. This isn't a situation where the road to hell is paved with good intentions. This was a road to hell that was paved with diabolical intentions. And to give him any credence was just, it was beyond belief that could happen. But in addition, I think that where I would agree with the president, but obviously he didn't go far enough, is that this war and the Afghanistan war are absolutely the source, the major source for the tremendous problem of the deficit and the debt, the national debt that we face as a country. And he meaning President Obama, decided that last night was going to be a night for political diplomacy, and he was not going to lay down the boom. But the rest of us should be very clear about what this has meant, what sacrifices we have had to make as a result of these incredibly immoral, unjust wars.
Well, let's talk a couple of moments about electioneering and elections. Do you think this will make any difference for the Democrats this November?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm not one of the gloom and doom people, Laura. I think it remains a toss-up, because I think that between now and Election Day, the voters are going to have to do some serious thinking about what they really feel and whether or not they fear what the Republicans would bring back, not bring in, but bring back. So I think it remains very, very unclear. What the Democrats need to do is not this kind of charades around the war, but they need to be speaking about the economy, and they need to be talking about the pain that working people are facing, and they need to be advancing a program that addresses that. That's what they need to be doing.
Will they be doing it this October at the demonstration that you've announced before on this program, 10 to 10, the 2nd of October? We'll be there with Free Speech TV. Will that rally be the beginning of that refocus? And if so, will it be soon enough? And then, I hate to say it, but will the numbers match the numbers of Glenn Beck this August, whatever you think those numbers might have been?
Let's start there. I actually think that the numbers are going to match. There's a lot of excitement about this march, and more than I actually anticipated. And part of the reason is that there's a growing sense that there has to be a popular response to these right-wing idiots, Glenn Beck included. And so that's what, to me, is very exciting. The response, however, to the right wing cannot wait for October 2nd. It has to begin right now. October 2nd needs to be part of further energizing the base, but we can't wait till October 2nd in order for the base to be energized.
And finally, I introduced you with your role at UFPJ. What's next for the peace movement as the war focus shifts, whether all the troops do or not, from Iraq to Afghanistan?
Well, twofold. One is that the peace movement and the sections of the peace movement are getting very actively involved in October 2nd, and that's really excellent. But I think, and I've argued this for a while, Laura, that the peace movement runs a risk when it focuses only on one country at a time. That we obviously have to take on Afghanistan, but we really have to be building a movement for a different sort of foreign policy. I mean, while we were involved in Iraq and Afghanistan, there was the coup in Honduras, a coup that the Obama administration initially opposed, but did nothing to frustrate. The peace movement needed to be there. So we need to have a peace movement that really is raising the rabble around this issue of what kind of foreign policy do we have.
Bill Fletcher, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to have you. We'll talk to you again very soon. There are links and more information at our website, GRITtv.org.